Hello, everyone, and you are welcome back to Helena's Corner. If you're new here, my name is Heleena. I'm a qualified social worker. I work with children and families. This channel is all about helping you understand child protection, family well being, and how to be the best support for your children. So, we're just going to go right straight to our topic for today. And today's topic is very important. We're going to be discussing 5 signs a child may be experiencing emotional abuse. All right. Emotional abuse can be subtle but very devastating, and many times it goes unnoticed. So let's break it down, right? What's emotional abuse? Emotional abuse is a consistent pattern of behavior by a parent, caregiver, or adult that undermines a child's sense of self worth. So it's anything that a caregiver, a parent, an adult does, or is any behavior that an adult does that undermines a child's sense of self worth, emotional development, and safety. It includes things like constant criticisms, rejections, humiliations, threats, and ignoring the child's emotional needs. Unlike physical abuse, emotional abuse doesn't leave visible scars, but its effects can be long lasting and deeply damaging. So, before we continue, if you find this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share it with friends or parents who you know may need this information. Now, let's dive in. The first sign of emotional abuse: withdrawal from social interaction. Withdrawal from social interaction. Children who are emotionally abused may become very quiet, isolated, or avoidant. They might stop talking to adults or peers. You may notice that they don't want to play or engage with others like they used to. So if you notice your child all of a sudden starts withdrawing from people, from peers, and being isolated, quite avoidant, which is not how they were, then it's a sign that there is emotional hurt somewhere. And need I clarify that this kind of withdrawal isn't just shyness, okay? So you need to really be sensitive and understand your child. You might see them sitting alone in class or in church or in gatherings, avoiding eye contact or hesitating to speak even when encouraged. They may look constantly worried or like they're walking on eggshells. This is their way of protecting themselves from perceived emotional harm. So when your child is withdrawn or showing these signs, you need to probe further. You need to be curious about why they are behaving that way. Um, I've worked with a child before that used to love football so much, do so well in football, and all of a sudden he stopped. That's a sign. You need to understand why your child has suddenly stopped doing something he or she loves so much for no reason. You need to probe further. You need to be curious as a parent. Yeah. And of course, after some gentle conversations with the child, it was obvious that it became clear that he was afraid of being criticized at home. Yeah, sometimes parents criticize their children. Um, you know, they don't celebrate their wins, but hammer more on their losses, which is not good, which can affect a child's emotions and security. Sign number 2: low self-esteem or constant self-blame. When you notice that your child has low self-esteem or constant self-blame, when your child is constantly blaming himself or herself for anything, or for instance when your child makes some statements like, I'm stupid, I always mess up, I mess things up, it's my fault. Those are huge red flags. When you see your child blaming themselves for everything, it's a red flag. You need to sit and think about why your child is always blaming himself or herself for situations, even some that are even beyond their control. Yeah, these children often believe they can't do anything right because they've internalized constant criticisms or blames. Their sense of worth is often shaped by what they're repeatedly told. that they are not good enough. So parents, we need to be careful about what we tell our children. We need to be careful because it's what you tell them that keeps ringing in their heads. So you need to speak positively to your child's life. You need to celebrate their wins, all right? And let them know it's okay to lose. It's okay to make mistakes and not blame them for it because it affects them. You may also notice the child apologizing constantly, even for things that aren't their fault. Just see them apologizing. This is a clear indicator that they are used to being blamed for everything, which slowly erodes their confidence and ability to express themselves. So when there's a situation, instead of explaining himself or herself or letting you know what happened, they'll just apologize for it, take the blame, and end it there. But that's not so. All right. As a parent, what can you do? Remind the child that mistakes are okay. Parents need to be intentional about telling their children that it's okay to make mistakes. To lose sometimes is okay, and not blame them for everything. Praise efforts over results. Praise efforts. The fact that they engage in some certain activities, praise that effort, even if they lose. All right. Give specific and positive feedback. Always give your children positive feedback. Yes, of course, if they do anything wrong or if they made some wrong choices, it's okay to highlight those wrong choices to them, but not blame them for it. It's about letting them know that it's okay to make mistakes sometimes, that no one is perfect. If you're a professional, obviously, you have to always document and explore these patterns. The third sign is fear of making mistakes. If a child seems overly anxious or panicked about making even the smallest mistake, it could be a sign that they're afraid of emotional consequences, like being yelled at, shamed, or rejected. This fear might present as perfectionism, where they go to extremes to avoid criticisms. And it's something that happens almost all the time. You see children that probably go to school with something, maybe their scooters or a football, and for some reason it gets missing at school or it gets broken at school, and you see them trying to fix it or trying to find it or trying to do something just so that. And when you speak to this child, and why all the effort? The child will say things like, "Oh, I'm going to be criticized when I get home. I'm going to get into trouble. Mom is not going to do it. My dad is going to," it affects the child. All right, you need to be conscious and speak to your children about it being okay to make mistakes, to break things. It happens. Even as adults, sometimes we break our glass cups, our mugs, our dishes. When we are doing dishes, sometimes we'll be doing dishes and the dish, breaks. It's okay to make mistakes. So we shouldn't blame our children when they make mistakes. All right. Watch out for behaviors like excessive apologizing, freezing when asked questions. When your child freezes when you ask him or her a question, you need to be curious about why. Overchecking their work or asking for reassurance constantly. This fear of mistakes come often from a home environment where love and approval are conditional. Your love for your children should not be conditional. All right. In some cases, some children might also become highly controlling of their surroundings to avoid failure, which can affect their ability to play and engage freely. Of course, when a child is afraid of failing or a child is afraid of what might happen, you see the child will not be able to explore. So it's going to affect the child's ability to explore, which will also impact the child's learning, which will impact the child's learning and impact a lot in that child. Please, we need to be very, very intentional and be conscious of what our children are doing. Sign number 4, sudden changes in behavior. Does the happy, bubbly child suddenly become quiet or aggressive? Sudden behavioral changes often reflect inner emotional turmoil. Some may act out because they don't know how to express what's happening, others may completely shut down. So you need to be sensitive about your children's behaviors, and any sudden change in their behavior, ask. Be curious about why there is this sudden change in a child's behavior, right? You might notice mood swings, increased irritability, or acting younger than their age. On the flip side, some children become unusually compliant or eager to please, another form of emotional self protection. You might see children that are very compliant or eager to please their parents. Like, that's it's very common when you see children that are eager to please their parents because they don't want to get into trouble. And that's not part of learning. This is especially relevant if there is a sudden change in home circumstance, like divorce, a new partner, bereavement, or increased stress. Behavioral shifts are one of the strongest outward indicators of an internal emotional struggle. So you need to also be sensitive about your children and how they feel when there are some situations or circumstances in the home, like divorce, a new partner, bereavement, increased stress, when there's like a financial struggle, or even parental illness. When a mother is probably ill in the hospital, it can affect a child's emotional well being. So we need to be very, very sensitive about our children and how they feel. The fifth sign is regression. Regression is when a child goes back to younger behaviors. So when you see a child that is probably 10 and behaving like a 5-year-old, this is usually seen in teenagers, or in teenagers, like from the age of 12, 13, 14. You see them regressing, and that's because when they're just entering into their teenage years, there's this challenge that comes with being a teenager, or just getting into that level or that stage of their lives, that they struggle a lot. And when they see that, when they feel like they're not getting it right, or they're not getting that support that they need, you see them regress. You see them behave like a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old, because they're struggling with how to be a 13-year-old, for instance, or how to be a 14-year-old. They struggle. So when you see your child regressing, when you see your child going back or behaving younger than his age, you should ask questions, probe further, and know why that is happening. There are a lot of behaviors that could show. Let me like give you some examples, specific examples of regression. Things like bedwetting, thumb sucking, being clingy. You can imagine a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old, even a 12-year-old being clingy. You'd be like, where is that coming from? You should ask your child where that's coming from. Or talking in a baby voice, and purposely talking like that because in their minds they're telling themselves that I'm not yet 13, I'm not 14, so I might as well speak like a younger child. Regression can also include needing help with tasks they previously did independently, or showing separation anxiety that wasn't there before. Yeah, when a child regresses, they may be seeking safety or attention they feel is missing. Yeah, that's why it's always good to be intentional about focusing on your children's needs. Be intentional about attending to your children. If this happens, it's important not to punish the child. Instead, gently investigate what might be triggering this regression. Let the child know that they are safe and supported. Always let your children know that they are safe and you are there to support them. I was seeing a movie recently on Netflix. I don't know if anyone has seen the movie Forever, and there was something that happened in the movie which the girl hid from her mom. So I don't want to be a spoiler. I'm just gonna be general, and which the girl hid from her mom. And when her mom, initially mom got angry, and later it kind of like spoke to someone and came back and said, I've always loved you. I thought, what she said was, I thought I've shown you so much love and support. I didn't know that I was not giving you an environment, a safe environment where you can come to me with this. So you can imagine a mom realizing that even showing her daughter all the love, the support, and everything, she still wasn't giving her daughter that safe environment for her daughter to actually come to her and speak to her about issues or things she's going through as a teenager. So sometimes we need to be sensitive as parents to our children's needs because we provide breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we give them money, we provide clothing, shelter, warmth, blah, 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 does not necessarily mean we are creating that safe environment for your children to actually come and speak to you. And that is why some of these things happen to children that they are really unnoticed because sometimes we don't know. And of course, when you're trying to make ends meet, as parents, a lot of parents do two, three jobs. They're all over the place trying to ensure that you have or the children are satisfied or they have what they need. We kind of forget that we also need to pay attention to them so that we can also get the best out of them. And that statement she made to her daughter really struck me because she really loves her daughter. She supports her daughter. She's there for ensuring that she does like two, three jobs so that her daughter doesn't lack anything. But something happened to her daughter and her daughter couldn't talk to her. She later on realized that she did not create that safe environment for her daughter to come and speak to her, despite all the love and all the affection and how she felt she was parenting right. So I think we need to really, really be sensitive when it comes to our children. So it's not only about putting food on the table. It's not only about shelter and providing shelter and providing their needs, physical needs. It's also about providing that emotional needs. It's very, 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 very important. Yeah. These signs don't automatically mean a child is being emotionally abused, but they are important warning signs. For instance, there could be a child that is quiet, and that's the child's nature to be quiet. So, because your child is naturally quiet, you might think, no, no, you need to study your children. You need to know them. You need to know how they've always been. And if there are any changes, you need to be sensitive and know that something has changed in this child and be curious. Yeah. So, if you notice two or more consistently, please speak to a teacher, health visitor, or a social worker. You can get a counselor, therapist, depends on you. Trust your instincts, especially when you're dealing with your children. You need to trust your instincts. If something is telling you at the back of your head that there's something wrong with that child, trust me, there is something wrong with that child. Children often can't speak up for themselves, yeah, but we can be their voice. So, if you found this video helpful, useful, please like, subscribe to Helena's Corner. Every week we talk about parenting tips, child safety, and what's really going on in families today. All right. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.